Jordan Hayes was 22 years old when she learned that reporting sexual harassment could destroy your life faster than the harassment itself. She was 3 months into her dream internship at Pinnacle Investments, one of Manhattan's most prestigious investment firms. She'd graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a degree in quantitative finance, beaten out 2,000 other applicants for this position, and was determined to prove she belonged in a field dominated by men who looked nothing like her. Jordan was a black woman in finance, already 2 strikes against her in many people's eyes. She'd spent her entire academic career being twice as good to be considered half as worthy. She was used to fighting for respect. What she wasn't prepared for was Derek Cross. Derek was 45, a senior partner at Pinnacle, married with 3 kids, and responsible for mentoring the firm's interns. He was charming in meetings, brilliant with numbers, and absolutely untouchable due to his track record of bringing in high-value clients. For the first month, Derek was professional. He praised Jordan's analytical skills, gave her increasingly complex projects, told the other partners she was the best intern we've had in years. Jordan felt like she was finally being seen for her abilities. Then came the dinner meeting. "Jordan, I need you to join me for a client dinner tomorrow night," Derek said one afternoon. The client specifically asked for analysis on tech sector trends. "You've been doing excellent work on that. Dress professionally. We're going to per se." Jordan didn't think twice about it. Client dinners were part of the job. She wore a professional black dress, brought her portfolio of analysis, and met Derek at the restaurant. The client never showed up. He had to cancel last minute. Derek said smoothly as Jordan sat down, confused. "But we're already here. Let's have dinner anyway. Consider it a reward for your hard work." Every instinct told Jordan to leave. But Derek was her supervisor. Refusing felt like career suicide. Over dinner, Derek's conversation shifted from professional to personal. He asked about her dating life, made comments about how striking she looked, mentioned how his marriage had lost its spark. Jordan gave short, deflecting answers and tried to steer conversation back to work. As they left the restaurant, Derek put his hand on her lower back. Too low, too familiar. Jordan stepped away immediately. "Derek, I should get home. Early morning tomorrow." "Come on, Jordan," Derek said, his voice dropping to something intimate, presumptuous. "We both know there's something here. You're ambitious. I can help your career. We could help each other." Jordan felt ice in her stomach. "I'm not interested in anything beyond a professional relationship." Derek's expression hardened. "Are you sure? Because opportunities like this don't come around often. You're a smart girl. Think carefully about what you're turning down." It wasn't just a proposition. It was a threat. Jordan went home that night and couldn't sleep. She knew what she'd heard, knew what Derek was implying. But he hadn't actually done anything illegal, not technically. It was all subtext, suggestion, plausible deniability. She decided to stay quiet and keep her distance. That's when Derek escalated. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek's behavior became impossible to ignore. He'd stand too close to Jordan's desk, deliberately invading her space. He'd send her late-night emails with comments like, "Still thinking about our dinner. We should do it again. Privately this time." He'd find excuses to touch her, hand on her shoulder, fingers brushing hers when passing documents, standing behind her looking at her computer screen with his body pressed against her chair. Jordan documented everything, saved every email, made notes of every incident with dates and times. She'd watched enough harassment training to know she needed evidence. Finally, after Derek cornered her in an empty conference room and told her explicitly that he could make her career or break it, depending on whether she was willing to be flexible, Jordan went to HR. She brought her documentation, showed them the emails, explained the escalating behavior, asked to be reassigned to a different supervisor. The HR director, Patricia Monroe, was a white woman in her 50s who'd been with the firm for 20 years. Patricia listened to Jordan's story with an expression that never changed. Then she closed the folder of evidence. "These emails could be interpreted as mentorship," Patricia said. "Standing near your desk isn't harassment. And Derek has been with this firm for 18 years with an impeccable record. Are you sure you're not misinterpreting friendly professional interest? He explicitly said he could make or break my career based on whether I was flexible," Jordan repeated. "That's not mentorship. Did anyone else hear him say that?" "No, we were alone in a conference room." Patricia's expression said everything Jordan needed to know. without witnesses or more concrete evidence. This becomes a he said, she said situation. And Derek is a senior partner. The firm can't risk damaging his reputation based on an intern's interpretation of events. So you're not going to do anything? Jordan felt her voice rising. I'm going to have a conversation with Derek about maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, Patricia said in a tone that suggested she'd do no such thing. But I'd advise you to focus on your work performance and avoid creating drama. You're an intern. Your job is to learn, not to make accusations against senior partners. Jordan left that meeting feeling sick. She'd done everything right. She'd documented, reported through proper channels, stayed professional. And she was being told to stay quiet. 2 days after Jordan's HR meeting, Derek called her into his office. Close the door, he said coldly. Jordan left it open. I'm fine with it open. Close the door. Jordan reluctantly complied, her heart pounding. Derek stood up, walked around his desk, and leaned against it, looking down at where Jordan stood. I hear you went to HR with some concerns about me, he said, his voice deadly calm. I reported inappropriate behavior and requested reassignment, Jordan said, keeping her voice steady. You know what I think? Derek moved closer. I think you're an ambitious young woman who misinterpreted mentorship as something else. Or maybe you're trying to create a situation you can exploit. Either way, you've made a serious mistake. I documented everything, Jordan said. Every email, every comment, and HR found nothing actionable, Derek interrupted. Because there's nothing there. But what is there, Jordan, is a performance record. And I'm afraid your performance hasn't been meeting our standards. Jordan felt the floor dropping out from under her. My performance has been excellent. You've said so repeatedly. That was before I realized you weren't taking feedback well. Before I saw you making errors in your analysis. Before I understood you weren't a good cultural fit for this firm. It was happening. The retaliation she'd feared. I've recommended to the partners that we terminate your internship, Derek continued. You'll be paid through the end of the week. I'd suggest you start looking for opportunities elsewhere. Though I should warn you, finance is a small world. When firms call for references, they'll hear that you couldn't handle the pressures of the job. Jordan felt tears burning in her eyes, but refused to let them fall. This is retaliation. This is a business decision, Derek replied. Now, I need you to pack your desk. Security will escort you out. Jordan spent the next month in a fog of depression and rage. She'd been fired from her dream job, blacklisted in the industry. When she applied to other firms, she got rejection after rejection. When she finally got an interview, the hiring manager said, "We spoke to your former supervisor. He had concerns about your professionalism and ability to handle pressure. I'm afraid we're moving forward with other candidates." Derek had made good on his threat. He destroyed her career before it even started. Jordan had $200,000 in student loans, no job, and a degree in quantitative finance that was apparently worthless now that she'd been marked as a problem by Derek Cross. She moved back to her mother's house in Philadelphia, devastated and broke. Her mother, Angela Hayes, found her crying in her childhood bedroom one night. "Baby, talk to me," Angela said, sitting on the edge of the bed. What happened? Really happened. Jordan told her everything. The harassment, the HR cover-up, the retaliation, the blacklisting. Angela listened silently, her expression growing harder with each detail. "So what are you going to do?" Angela finally asked. "I don't know," Jordan admitted. Derek won. He's a senior partner at a prestigious firm. I'm a nobody with student loans I can't pay. The system protects men like him. The system does protect men like him, Angela agreed. So don't play by the system's rules. Jordan looked at her mother, confused. Angela pulled out a small savings passbook. Your grandmother left you $5,000 when she passed. She wanted you to use it for something that mattered. I think this matters. Mom, that's not enough to fight a lawsuit against Pinnacle. Their lawyers would destroy me. I'm not saying fight them legally, Angela said. Not yet. I'm saying beat them. You have a degree from MIT in quantitative finance. You built algorithms that analyzed market trends better than anyone at that firm. Use what you know. Build something so successful they can't ignore you. Then, when you have power, you take them down the right way. Jordan stared at her mother. You want me to start trading with $5,000? I want you to bet on yourself, Angela corrected. Because nobody else is going to do it for you. If you're watching this and you've ever been knocked down by people who underestimated you, hit that like button. This story is about to show you that your lowest moment can become your launching pad, if you're willing to do the work. Keep watching to see how Jordan turns $5,000 into billions. Jordan spent the next 3 months doing something she'd never done before. She stopped looking for permission and started building her own path. She converted her childhood bedroom into a trading station. 3 monitors from Craigslist, a refurbished desktop computer, Bloomberg terminal access that cost half her remaining savings. She studied market patterns 18 hours a day, tested algorithms she'd developed during her MIT thesis that her professors said were too aggressive for institutional investing. Aggressive was exactly what she needed. Jordan started with day trading, buying and selling stocks within the same day based on her algorithmic predictions. It was risky. Most day traders lose money. But Jordan had advantages most day traders didn't. A quantitative finance degree from MIT, algorithms that could process market data faster than human analysis, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The first week, she made $200. The second week, she lost $300. The third week, she made $800. She was learning, refining, improving. By month 3, Jordan's $5,000 had grown to $15,000. Her mother noticed the change in her. Jordan wasn't depressed anymore. She was focused, driven, angry in a productive way. "You're different," Angela observed one morning, bringing coffee to Jordan's room where she was already analyzing Asian market closings. "I'm done being a victim," Jordan replied, not looking away from her screens. "Derek took my dream job, but he can't take my brain. He can't take what I know. And he definitely can't stop me from building something he'll never see coming." By month 6, Jordan's $15,000 had grown to $50,000. She'd refined her algorithm to focus on small-cap tech stocks with high volatility. Her system could identify patterns human traders missed, micro-fluctuations that predicted larger movements minutes before they happened. Those minutes meant profit. By month 9, she'd turned $50,000 into $150,000. That's when Jordan made a crucial decision. She stopped day trading and started swing trading, holding positions for days or weeks instead of hours. It was less exciting but more scalable, and she started a blog. Quantitative Finance Explained was Jordan's way of documenting her journey while teaching others. She explained her strategies, shared market analysis, built a following of aspiring traders who were hungry for education from someone who actually knew what they were doing. The blog did something unexpected. It built her reputation. Within 6 months, she had 50,000 subscribers. Within a year, 200,000. People didn't care that Jordan had been fired from Pinnacle. They cared that she was making money and sharing knowledge. By year 2, Jordan's $150,000 had grown to $2 million. She moved out of her mother's house and into a small apartment in Philadelphia. Nothing fancy. She was reinvesting every dollar she could into her trading account. She also started getting calls from investors who'd found her through the blog. Small investors at first. People with $10,000 or $50,000 who wanted her to manage it using her algorithms. Jordan said no to the first dozen requests. She didn't have the licensing or infrastructure to manage other people's money. But then she got a call that changed everything. "Ms. Hayes, my name is Robert Chun. I'm a former partner at Goldman Sachs, now retired. I've been following your blog for 6 months. Your analysis is some of the most sophisticated I've seen from someone your age. I'd like to invest $5 million with you." Jordan almost dropped the phone. "I'm not set up to manage outside capital. I don't have a fund structure or, then set one up," Robert interrupted. "I've seen 1,000 traders in my 40 years in finance. Most are mediocre people with good connections. You're the opposite, brilliant person who got shut out because you threatened the wrong mediocre man. Let me help you build the infrastructure you need." Over the next 3 months, Robert Shin became Jordan's mentor and first major investor. He connected her with lawyers who structured a hedge fund, with auditors who ensured regulatory compliance, with administrators who handled the back-end operations. Jordan Hayes Capital Management launched with $7 million in assets under management, $2 million of Jordan's own capital, $5 million from Robert Shin. Jordan's algorithm was applied to a diversified portfolio. The results were extraordinary. Year 1, 67% returns. The industry average was 12%. Word spread fast in the investment community. Jordan Hayes Capital Management started getting calls from wealthy individuals, family offices, and small institutions. By year 3, Jordan was managing $50 million in assets. By year 4, $200 million. By year 5, $800 million. Jordan wasn't just successful, she was becoming legendary. The 27-year-old woman who'd built a hedge fund from nothing and was consistently outperforming funds with hundreds of employees and decades of history. Forbes did a profile, the algorithm that Derek Cross created, how sexual harassment led to a billion-dollar hedge fund. The article detailed Jordan's story, the harassment, the retaliation, the blacklisting, and how she'd used that pain to fuel extraordinary success. The industry noticed, particularly Pinnacle Investments. Derek Cross was now CEO of Pinnacle Investments. He'd climbed the ladder through a combination of bringing in big clients and political maneuvering. The firm was successful but facing challenges: increased competition, regulatory scrutiny, and a reputation for being old-fashioned and male-dominated. Derek was in his office when his chief operating officer, Michael Torres, walked in with a tablet. "You need to see this," Michael said, pulling up the Forbes article. Derek read it, his face going from confused to pale to furious. "Jordan Hayes," he said slowly. She was an intern 8 years ago. An intern you sexually harassed and got fired, according to this article," Michael said carefully. "Derek, is this true?" "It's her word against mine," Derek snapped. "There was an HR investigation. Nothing came of it. She was fired for performance issues. She's now running a billion-dollar hedge fund," Michael pointed out. "That suggests her performance was fine." Derek threw the tablet on his desk. "This is ancient history. Why do I care what some former intern is doing?" "Because she's not just successful," Michael said. "She's building acquisition capital. Her fund has been buying distressed investment firms. Small ones so far. But Derek, she's learning. And according to her last investor letter, she's looking for larger targets." Derek felt a chill. "She wouldn't she?" Michael asked. "You destroyed her career. She rebuilt it. Now she has the resources to destroy yours. If I were you, I'd be worried." If you're inspired by Jordan's comeback, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next is going to teach you the most important lesson about success. It's not about revenge. It's about becoming so undeniable that the people who wronged you can't ignore their mistake. Don't go anywhere. This story is about to get even better. Year 6 brought changes for both Jordan and Pinnacle Investments. Jordan Hayes Capital Management crossed the billion-dollar threshold in assets under management. Jordan was 28 years old, managing money for some of the wealthiest people in the world, and her returns were still outperforming the market by massive margins. But Jordan was also evolving. She'd spent years building wealth. Now she wanted to build power. She restructured her fund to create a private equity arm, Jordan Hayes Acquisition Partners. The strategy: identify undervalued or poorly managed investment firms, acquire them, restructure them with better systems and ethical practices, and either hold them or sell them at profit. Her first acquisition was a small Boston-based fund that had been struggling after its founder retired. Jordan bought it for $15 million, installed new management, implemented her algorithmic systems, and within 18 months, it was profitable and growing. Her second acquisition was larger, a mid-sized firm in Chicago with $300 million in assets under management. Same playbook, same results. Jordan was proving she wasn't just a brilliant trader. She was a brilliant operator who could identify broken systems and fix them. Wall Street was paying attention. Meanwhile, Pinnacle Investments was declining. Derek's leadership was problematic. He'd surrounded himself with yes men, ignored warnings about compliance issues, and maintained a toxic culture that drove away talented young professionals, especially women. 3 sexual harassment lawsuits had been settled quietly in the past 4 years. The legal department kept burying them, but word spread. Pinnacle was developing a reputation as a place where harassment was tolerated if you brought in enough revenue. Talented analysts were leaving for competitors. Client acquisition was slowing. The firm's performance was mediocre. They were barely matching market returns instead of beating them. The board of directors was getting nervous. Then Jordan made her move. The announcement came on a Monday morning. Jordan Hayes Acquisition Partners was launching a hostile takeover bid for Pinnacle Investments. The offer, $1.8 billion for complete acquisition of the firm. The financial press exploded. Former intern returns to buy the firm that fired her, #MeToo meets Wall Street. Jordan Hayes targets her harasser's company. The ultimate revenge. Sexual harassment victim becomes her abuser's boss. Derek called an emergency board meeting. "This is personal vendetta," he told the board members. "Jordan Hayes has a grudge. She's trying to embarrass me and this firm. She's offering $1.8 billion, one board member pointed out. "That's 30% above our current valuation. Our shareholders will want to consider it." "She was fired for performance issues," Derek insisted. "She's rewriting history to play victim." "Then why is she running a billion-dollar fund while our performance is mediocre?" another board member asked. "Derek, if her performance was so bad, how did she build this?" The meeting didn't go well for Derek. The hostile takeover battle lasted for months. Derek fought hard. He got Pinnacle's lawyers to challenge every aspect of the acquisition. He went on CNBC to argue that Jordan was unqualified to run a firm of Pinnacle's size. He tried to find white knight investors who would counteroffer. Nothing worked. Jordan had done her homework. She'd built relationships with Pinnacle's largest shareholders. She prepared a detailed plan for how she'd restructure the firm to improve performance. She'd pointed to her track record of successful acquisitions. Most importantly, she'd forced Pinnacle to disclose its harassment settlements as part of the takeover battle. The board had been hiding the full extent of the problem from shareholders. When investors learned that Pinnacle had paid out over $3 million in harassment settlements in just 4 years, the outcry was immediate. Shareholders demanded change. Institutional investors publicly stated they'd vote in favor of the acquisition. Derek's support evaporated. The final board vote was 8-2 in favor of accepting Jordan's offer. Pinnacle Investments was now owned by Jordan Hayes Acquisition Partners. Derek Cross was out as CEO, forced to resign as part of the acquisition agreement. Jordan's first day as the new owner of Pinnacle Investments was carefully staged. She walked into the Manhattan headquarters at 9 a.m. wearing a sharp business suit, flanked by her COO and her head of HR, both women, both committed to transforming Pinnacle's toxic culture. The staff had been called to a mandatory all-hands meeting in the main conference area. Jordan stood at the front of the room, looking at the hundreds of faces, some curious, some nervous, some openly hostile. 8 years ago, Jordan began, her voice carrying clearly. "I was an intern at this firm. I was brilliant, hardworking, and excited to start my career in finance. Within 3 months, I was sexually harassed by a senior partner. When I reported it to HR, I was told I was causing drama. 2 days later, I was fired for alleged performance issues. And then I was blacklisted from the industry." The room was completely silent. "That experience destroyed me," Jordan continued. "For months, I was depressed, broke, and convinced my career was over. The system had failed me. The firm I dreamed of working for had protected my harasser and thrown me away like garbage." She paused, making eye contact with people throughout the room. "But I learned something important from that experience. I learned that when the system fails you, you build a better system. I learned that when people try to destroy you, the best response isn't revenge. It's success so complete they can't ignore it." Jordan pulled up a slide showing Pinnacle's performance over the past 8 years compared to the industry average. The gap was embarrassing. This firm has been underperforming for years. Not because the people here aren't talented, many of you are brilliant, but because the culture was toxic, because harassment was tolerated, because the leadership prioritized protecting predators over building a healthy, high-performing organization. Another slide appeared, showing the harassment settlements. $3 million paid to settle harassment claims in 4 years. $3 million spent protecting men who should have been fired. $3 million that could have been invested in talent, technology, and growth. Jordan looked directly at several senior partners who'd been part of Derek's inner circle. "That ends today. Effective immediately, Pinnacle Investments has zero tolerance for harassment of any kind. Anyone currently facing complaints will undergo independent investigation. Anyone found guilty will be terminated with cause, regardless of their revenue generation or seniority." She pulled up another slide. "I'm also implementing immediate changes. Mandatory anti-harassment training for all employees, conducted by external experts. An independent ethics hotline where complaints can be reported anonymously without going through internal HR. A restructured HR department with leadership committed to actually protecting employees, not protecting the firm's reputation. And most importantly, performance evaluations based on merit, ethics, and contribution to a positive culture, not just revenue. The room was beginning to shift. Jordan could see it in people's faces, hope replacing skepticism. "I'm not here to punish people who stayed silent 8 years ago," Jordan said. "I understand the pressure to keep your head down in a toxic culture. But I am here to make sure this firm becomes a place where speaking up is protected, where talent is recognized regardless of gender or background, and where we win by being the best, not by being the most ruthless." She clicked to the final slide, a restructuring plan that showed investments in technology, training, and talent development. Pinnacle Investments is going to become the most ethical, highest-performing investment firm in New York. We're going to implement cutting-edge algorithmic trading systems. We're going to recruit and promote the best talent regardless of who they are or where they came from. And we're going to prove that you can be profitable and ethical at the same time. Jordan closed her laptop. "I'm giving each of you a choice. Stay and be part of this transformation, or leave with a generous severance package if you can't commit to this new culture. But if you stay, you're committing to excellence, ethics, and building something we can all be proud of." The applause started slowly, then built into something genuine. After the meeting, Jordan's new HR director approached her. "We have 17 current harassment complaints on file," she said quietly. Derek's HR department was sitting on them, hoping they'd just go away. "Investigate every single one," Jordan said immediately. "Independent investigators, full transparency to the victims, and zero tolerance for retaliation. Anyone who tries to intimidate a victim is fired immediately." Within 3 months, Jordan had fired 12 employees, including 3 senior partners who'd been protected under Derek's regime. She'd promoted 6 women to senior leadership positions. She'd implemented her algorithmic trading systems across the firm. And Pinnacle's performance? It jumped 34% in the first year under Jordan's ownership. If this story is hitting home for you, if you've ever been told you weren't good enough or had someone try to destroy your dreams, do me a favor. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because Jordan's story proves that the people who try to keep you down often just motivate you to rise higher. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the ending, because it gets even better. Derek Cross watched Jordan's transformation of Pinnacle from the outside, bitter and unemployed. His reputation was destroyed. The harassment allegations had become public during the takeover battle. No firm would touch him. His wife had filed for divorce after learning the full extent of his behavior. His children barely spoke to him. He'd lost everything because he'd underestimated a 22-year-old intern and thought he could destroy her career without consequences. 1 year after Jordan's acquisition, Derek sent her an email. "Jordan, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you owe me nothing. But I need to say this. I was wrong. About everything. I abused my power. I harassed you. I destroyed your career because my ego couldn't handle being rejected. And then I spent 8 years convincing myself I'd done nothing wrong. Watching you buy Pinnacle and transform it into something better than I ever made it. That's been the hardest lesson of my life. You were brilliant at 22, and I was too threatened by that to recognize it. You're brilliant now, and the whole world can see it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just saying I was wrong, and I'm sorry, and I hope you build something extraordinary on the ruins of what I destroyed. Derek." Jordan read the email once, filed it in a folder labeled Evidence, and never responded. Derek Cross wasn't worth her time anymore. 5 years after acquiring Pinnacle, Jordan stood in front of a classroom at MIT, her alma mater, as a guest lecturer. The room was packed with students, many of them young women of color who saw themselves in Jordan's story. "I'm going to teach you something they probably won't cover in your finance classes," Jordan began. "How to survive when the system tries to destroy you." She pulled up a slide showing her journey from $5,000 to billions. This isn't a pull yourself up by your bootstraps motivational speech. What happened to me was wrong. The harassment was wrong. The retaliation was wrong. The blacklisting was wrong. The system failed me, and it fails thousands of women every year. Jordan clicked to the next slide. Statistics on harassment in finance. The percentage of women who leave the industry. The settlements paid by major firms. But here's what I learned. Waiting for the system to fix itself is a losing strategy. The system protects power, and if you don't have power, the system isn't designed to help you. She pulled up her trading charts from those early years. "So I built power. I took my MIT education, the thing they couldn't take from me, and I weaponized it. I learned algorithmic trading not from a mentor or a firm, but from textbooks, online courses, and trial and error. I turned $5,000 into millions by being better than the people who tried to destroy me. A student raised her hand. But you had advantages. You went to MIT. You had an education in quantitative finance. What about people who don't have that? Fair question, Jordan acknowledged. And you're right, I had advantages. But I also had $200,000 in student loans, a destroyed reputation, and no job. The education helped, but it wasn't enough. The real advantage was refusing to accept that my story ended with being fired. She pulled up another slide showing her blog analytics. I started documenting my journey publicly. Quantitative finance explained started with 0 followers. But I shared real knowledge, explained concepts, showed my strategies, taught people what I was learning. Within a year, I had 200,000 subscribers. That built a reputation Derek Cross couldn't destroy. Jordan clicked through slides showing her fund's growth, her acquisitions, her eventual takeover of Pinnacle. The lesson isn't get revenge on everyone who wrongs you. The lesson is, build something so undeniable that they can't ignore their mistake. Derek Cross spent 8 years thinking he'd won by destroying my career. I spent 8 years becoming so successful that I could buy his entire company and fire him. Which one of us actually won? The classroom erupted in applause. After the lecture, a young woman approached Jordan, a black student wearing an MIT hoodie. I was harassed by a professor, she said quietly. I reported it. Nothing happened. I'm thinking about dropping out. Jordan looked at this young woman and saw herself at 22. Don't drop out, Jordan said firmly. Don't give him that power. But also don't wait for the system to save you. Document everything. Build your skills. Make yourself so valuable that you don't need their permission to succeed. And when you're ready, when you're powerful, come back and burn it all down the legal way. The student smiled. That's what you did. That's exactly what I did, Jordan confirmed. And you can too. 8 years after being fired, 10 years after first walking into Pinnacle Investments as a bright-eyed intern, Jordan Hayes stood in her corner office overlooking Manhattan. Pinnacle Investments, now rebranded as Hayes Capital Management, was valued at $8 billion. Her personal net worth was $2.3 billion. She'd been named to Forbes' list of most powerful women in finance for 3 consecutive years. But the numbers weren't what mattered most. What mattered was the 47 women who'd come forward after Jordan's acquisition to report harassment they'd suffered at Pinnacle under Derek's leadership. Jordan had personally ensured every single one received justice, settlements, apologies, and most importantly, the knowledge that they were believed. What mattered was the scholarship fund Jordan had established for women pursuing careers in quantitative finance. 500 full-ride scholarships awarded over 5 years. What mattered was the culture transformation at Hayes Capital Management. The firm now had 52% women in leadership positions. 0 harassment complaints filed in the past 3 years. The highest employee satisfaction rating in the industry. Jordan had taken the pain Derek Cross inflicted and transformed it into purpose. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Proud of you, baby. Your grandmother would be so proud too. You took her $5,000 and changed the world. Jordan smiled and typed back. Tell her thank you. For the seed money and for raising a mom who taught me that the best revenge is success. She looked out at the Manhattan skyline, at the city that had tried to chew her up and spit her out, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Derek Cross was irrelevant now. A cautionary tale. A man who'd had power and squandered it by abusing it. Jordan Hayes was a billionaire CEO, a mentor to young women in finance, and living proof that the people who try to destroy you often just give you the motivation to become unstoppable. The intern had bought the company, and she'd transformed it into something better than it ever was under the men who'd thought they owned it. If Jordan's story inspired you, if you've ever been knocked down and wondered if you could get back up, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that like button to tell me this story resonated with you. Second, subscribe to this channel because we share stories like this. Stories about real people who turn their pain into power and prove that success is the best revenge. And third, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you.